Alrighty folks, welcome to this second part of the Abberant video. I'm looking forward to this one, and I hope you enjoy watching this one. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and press the bell button next to it so you don't miss any of my uploads. But without further ado, let's have a look at where we're going at the end of this video and what paints I'll be using to get there. Alright, let's have a look. So this is the model we're going for. You can see there's some black going on him now, and also we're going to get the fabrics done. All right, and to get this far, we will start off by having a bit of a shade with Aberrant's Earth Shade, exactly where we left off the last video. We'll then be using a Rust Grey and Stormfang to highlight the clothing that he's got on. We'll then be picking out some of these details with Abaddon Black, and we will be highlighting the black in two ways. First off, we will use Dawnstone and Longbeard Grey, both of which dry paints. And then we'll be using Administratum Grey and Teclis Blue, which are both layer paints. So we'll be getting on with that. We will we'll get through. We'll finish off the fabric that we started in the last video, and then we'll get those black areas painted. All right. So let's get cracking. And so what we're going to do is we will start exactly where we left off last time round, which I want to shade the fang here, and we're going to use Aberrant's Earth Shade to do so. So nice and simply, grab me brush and just dip that in there, and ever so carefully. We don't want to get this on the skin, and nice and smoothly all over we are just going to paint on this Aberrant's Earth Shade. Alright. So, you know, as always, make sure you don't get any of the pooling. So just keep an eye on it, especially down here. You know, because as the wash starts to run away from the flat areas, it will gather and start building up in the recesses even as it dries. So just keep an eye on that, and I'll put it down this way so that when I use the powers of YouTube, it looks better. There we go, look at that. That's dried off quite nicely. I'm quite happy with that. So the next thing I'm going to do is, as always with this nice and simple effect, we're going to do a bit of dry brushing. First of all, we're going to use Rust Grey and then Stormfang, and I'm going to use this Citadel starter brush again. I could edge highlight, we could layer this up, and we could go along and get all the peaks, for want of a better term, the high points, and edge highlight them all. But like I said this in the previous videos, this is going to be a very simple paint job. So, you know, I don't want to be spending, you know, I've got, you know, it's a commission piece, I've got lots to do, and so it would take me a long time to get through all of the highlighting. So what we're going to do is we're just going to grab the Rust Grey. Now this is a layer paint. You might notice it's not a dry paint, but it will behave in the same way. We add a little bit to the brush, and we take most of it off. You could say that this is this is like over brushing. It's kind of the same thing as dry brushing, but you use a wetter paint. You don't get quite as sharp of a finish, but we just carry on going over all of the high bits, just like you would with dry brushing. And there we go. Now, so if we have a look at the finish of this, you can see that there, you know, the flatter areas have been painted, much like you would try and avoid with dry brushing. You don't really want the flat areas to be painted as well. You're trying to only catch the edges, but this kind of effect, you know, I think is over brushing. You know, I've taught myself everything here, so I'm finding that I'm doing techniques that, you know, does have a name. And so I think this is over brushing in terms of what we're doing. So we get the paint on the flatter areas as well as the peaks, but you can see in the deepest recesses, you know, the brush just skipped over it. You know, as we were doing it, the brush is touching the model and it's bridging those gaps. It's laying paint down on the flatter areas because it's a wetter paint than a dry paint. So it's laying paint down over the areas that, you know, the brush is touching, but when it gets to a peak or a hole in the model, you know, it bridges those gaps and so doesn't reach into them. All right, and so there we go. So that's yeah, I'm pretty sure that's called overbrushing. So that's what we've done there, and then so that's with the rust grey, and then we'll move on with the Stormfang, and this is a dry paint. And so there will be a lot less paint. You notice I'm still using the same brush. I'm not cleaning the brush between it still, much like I would do with a regular dry paint, because the rust grey will mix a little bit. The little bit of rust grey that was left on the paintbrush will mix with this Stormfang and just marry those two together so that they're, you know, even though they're still pretty close in terms of colour wise anyway, but when you mix those two together, you know, it just marries them up completely. It just brings them together. And then we'll just go along here and just very quickly we'll just add a dry paint to this. It doesn't really do a lot in terms of colour, but you know, it is a slightly different colour to that. So we'll just do that nice and quickly over the top. Make sure we catch those edges along here, and then we just go along nice and quickly along here. You notice I don't even need to speed this up because there's really not a lot to it, and we're done. There we go, just like that. Alright, so that's the that's his cloth done, and we will move on now to another section of his clothing, which is on black. Abberant black. So I'm trying to move things off camera here. So let me just pop a bit of this in my wet palette. Okay, so what I'm going to do with the black here is these little panels that he has on his clothing. We're going to paint those in black. So very, very carefully, now that we've painted the rest of the clothing, or at least the rags that he's wearing, very carefully we're going to paint in the black. And then what I also want to do is I will be painting in the areas of his body that are becoming more Tyrannid like. So this section of his arm here is more Tyrannid like. We're going to avoid that little nub here and these little I don't know what you'd call them really, these little gaps in here, so we still get that purple kind of showing through. And we've got both of his arms there. These bits here we're going to avoid in black, and anything that's looking particularly Tyrannid like we'll paint in black as well for the carapace. So that's the arms done. I've done the entire of this arm, but you might have noticed I skipped this portion here of the arm, and that's because I missed a bit there. It looks more human than this bit, you know. So I thought, well, yeah, I'll leave it clear. So I've just done this armor plate. You know, this organic armor plate looking thing here. The arm here is still looking fairly human, and then obviously we come back into the very tyrannid looking forearm. What I'm also going to do with excuse me, we made sure we missed these spikes coming out of his elbows. However, these ones on his back, I'm going to paint these black too, because I imagine in my head that these are currently the start of a full-on carapace weapon, or at least, sorry, a full-on carapace piece of armor. So let's go over these here. I think I'll do that one as well. There's something protruding out of his neck at the back here, like that. Alright, and then also we'll do the ones on the back, and then there's some on his chest as well, which we will do. The leg we're going to keep the same, even though he's got this kind of skin growing thing here, but there's no real kind of plating on it. It just looks like skin. So we're not going to go over any of the leg in black. So I'm going to leave that as it is. So I'll get on with this. And then just give it once fine over. I noticed that I missed a bit on there, it's a bit thin. Just tidy up these edges here. There we go. So I am going to put him down for a moment, let him dry before coming in with some more detailing. Alright then, and as a final step to this video, I will do, you guessed it, some more dry brushing. So the pad that's on his leg down here, you can't really see it very well, it's on his back there, that's just going to be just a simple black. So we are going to dry brush it with Dawnstone and Longbeard Grey. As for the carapace type armor bits, a lot of people with Tyrannid stuff will use a very fine brush and will do tiny little lines along the edge of all of these of the edges to give it kind of a feathered kind of look, or some sort of striations along the edge of the armor plates. But I've already said before, this is a commission, and I have lots of these to do, and to do all of those lines it would take me far too long to actually get the job done. So what I'll be doing is I will be kind of dry brushing it, but again not with that one, with Teclis Blue, there we go, and Administratum Grey. Now both of these of course again are layer paints, so it's kind of over brushing I suppose as opposed to dry brushing. But it's not really neither here nor there what the technique is. It's just a case of how I'm going to do it. So I'm going to keep looking at my brushes, trying to find some decently clean ones, because I'm terrible at keeping up with that. And we are going to get cracking on straight on with the Dawnstone first. And we're going to pop in here with some of this. It's getting a little bit old and possibly due for renewal, I think. I tend to leave my paints open quite a bit when I'm using them. So here we go. Rub that off. And that comes in. I'm using a very fine, an old brush again as a dry brush, just to get in, because these are detailed bits. And if I tried using a bigger dry brush, I'd probably make a right mess of everything around it. So there we go. We're just rubbing in there, just catching all those edges of that black. And then we'll grab in with the dirty brush. We'll grab some Longbeard Grey. See, it's nice and quick, no speeding up required. Rub most of it off, and then just come in again just to catch the edges of that. There we go, nice and quick, and that'll do that. That's not a problem. It's one of those details, it's so small you're not really gonna pay much attention to it. So keeping it perfect, getting it all perfectly, highlighted and stuff is not really necessary. So the next thing I'm going to do is going to come in with the Administratum Grey. Now this, I'm going to use this brush again because it's a grey, it doesn't really matter. And it's a layer paint, so it's going to be slightly wetter than the dry paint that's already on it. So Administratum Grey, and again, we're going to treat it exactly like a dry paint, even though it's a layer paint. So we grab some on the brush, rub most of it off. And I may speed this bit up because of, I need to take some time and care with this. And again, we're going to use it like a dry brush, and we're going to go against the edges of the armor plates like this. Okay, now because it's the way the brush works, it does give a few striations to the dry brushing effect. But that's not really what I'm looking for. I'm just adding more like a hint to the black, really. I think you'll find once you see the end product, you'll realize that it's not so much of a pattern on the edge of the armor. It's more, I'm giving the black a tint, using very light brush, just adding a tint of color to the armor plates. So I'm going to go around doing this nice and lightly, catching the edges, and I'll show you when it's done. And there we go. I'm pretty happy with that. So you can see it kind of adds a tint to the colour. It's more tinting it grey. Now what we'll do is we'll grab the Teclis Blue, and we'll do exactly the same thing as always, using the dirty brush. And then actually what does help sometimes is rubbing it onto the old paint as well. It just adds that tiny little bit of black, grey to the blue. That just brings them together. And again, we do the same thing, only very lightly. And we're going to add this kind of blue tint to the edges of the armor plates. Just like that. There we go. So his black armor has now become slightly more blue to a tint. And we're going to leave it there for the video. We've got a very blue looking model now. We've got that that blue grey fang clothing, and we've got some blue black looking armor plates. So in the next video, I think it will be time to consider adding some more colors to this guy. Alright, So there we go. I'm pretty happy with the way he's turning out. He's looking pretty good, so hopefully the next video you'll see it kind of coming together. Alright, so don't forget, if you like the video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, give me a subscribe, and don't forget to press the bell button if you don't want to miss any of my uploads. And then also, if you want to help support the channel to make more and more videos and better quality, don't forget my Patreon link is below, but feel free to check that out at your leisure. But while you're down there, you'll find all of my social media links as well at the same time. Alright, so that just leaves me to say at the end of this video, thank you for watching this one. I'll catch you in the next one, alright? Bye.